What's up, guys? It's me, Spidey, and today we're going to talk about the Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel event, Time Travel 2010. For those of you guys who do not know, basically this is an event where you can only use cards that were available in the year 2010. And for some of you guys who know me and familiar with this channel, 2010 is some of the prime era of me and Kisame's rivalry. Well, maybe not 2010, maybe like 2008, 2009. But in 2010, that was really some of our best years where I had my master deck with Obnoxious Celtic Guardian, Nibblemo Manga, Light and Darkness Dragon, and Kisame had his deck with Ancient Gear Golem, Card Trooper, and Hydrogeddons. Like, these were some of the prime era of our rivalry. So playing in this event has been such a fucking blast from the past of me getting to play back in those old days. So today in this video, I'm going to showcase some duels that I was doing with that deck, but I couldn't necessarily make the deck that I was really using back then because 2010 was kind of like the very early synchro era. So I didn't really have the crafting materials to make like Stardust Dragon and any of those extra deck cards like Go You Guardian and things like that I was actually using. So I was kind of more similar to get to my 2009, 2008 deck. So I made it to the best of my ability and the best of my memory, and I'm going to showcase some of those duels, and at the end I'm going to showcase the deck profile, and then I'm going to play around with it to show you guys like the deck that we were using back then. Our fusion deck will be combined our two master decks together, and the actual master deck that I had, like some of the cards I was using in the master deck that I had when Kisame first met me when we had our first duel. So if you're excited for that, click that like button, subscribe to the channel, and let's get into it. So we're going to get into the first game right now. Now, I'm using my master deck, or this version of it, and then one thing that I have noticed about this meta is that this meta is very, very condensed. Like when people were using it, like it was really just Elemental Hero, Cyber Dragon, or Troll decks. Like that was really it. So I go off my normal play. I set my normal manga. I put a normal, I put a trap card face down. You know, I set 3 cards. Set 1 card face down, 2 cards in the spell trap card zone. Like this is my era. And going up against my opponent, Powder Duality. Like this is, like I said, when the game is starting to evolve and we're getting out of just the regular beat stick format, and we're getting into the more strategy with the more synchro monsters are getting introduced. So this is clearly a hero player. You attack my Nibblemo Manga, you get 2 more out of the deck. My infamous move, Nibblemo Manga, one of my favorite cards in the world. He sets his card face down, he ends his turn. Now it is my turn. Now I had some Monarchs in here. Now granted, the Rock Monarch wasn't in here, but I didn't have Prime Material Dragon. Prime Material Dragon is normally the other card that I would run, or Mobius. I didn't have them, so I just took what I had. So I put the Rock Monarch in there because I know we set a lot of trap cards. So just pop the trap cards, get them out of the way. So now he goes in his card. And I know back then card economy is what we call it now, but back then in 2010, Kisame, he kind of coined the phrase card for card. So it's like, it's the same thing as card economy, but it's basically like, if my 1 card could cost you more than 1 card, then I'm in an advantage. Like always having that card advantage. So the fact that I had all these cards on the field and cards in hand, like my card economy was way more than what he had, so I can get more out of it. This was such a weird card, the Snowman Eater with the Elemental. Like I barely remember this, but that's because you had Miracle Fusion, you had Absolute Zero, and then you had the Shining Neo. So there's like all these Omni heroes with the Elemental Hero synergy. Like I faced this deck so many times. Like I would probably say out of 10 duels, 9 out of 10 of them were just this. So that was one thing that was a little bit disappointing about this. But I really do wish there was a little bit more variety. People would just, you know, granted, I can't really say if the people playing in this app were playing Yu-Gi-Oh! In 2010 to really know. Like they could have just looked up what was meta and just say, all right, I'm gonna use the meta deck. It's either this, Synchrons, or Troll decks. Like there was really barely room for any originality. So Grand Mole, if you guys saw that Grand Mole, it's okay. Now this move I gotta pause it. Grand Mole is one of my favorite. Now it's one of my favorite cards in the hero archetype. But the fact that Grand Mole is such an easy removal and it gets around those trap cards, like it makes your opponent waste a trap card. So I like using Grand Mole. It gets rid of those tribute monsters and your opponent has to reset. And even in the earliest synchro deck days, you would have to have, if you put out a synchro monster and that Grand Mole your synchro monster, that could just ruin the whole game. So the move I just did was Effect Veil. I didn't know I could do this because I didn't have Effect Veil back then. So I used Effect Veil on DD Warrior Lady to negate its effect because in my mind I knew that okay, if it attacks, it's still on the field, so it wouldn't get its effect. And it was really odd is you go back to some of our older videos when me and Kisame were using our old school decks when like one of our past into the format channel, we used past, present, future, and Kisame used his we used the past decks, and you notice that there's some misplays in there. When you rewatch it back, like he was getting off some sick shit of like, okay, I attack your monster, but the like timing of when effects go off, the battle step and all that, like it's very interesting. So he would go to try to activate it, thinking that card would be in like the limbo where he can still get his effect off because it wasn't technically on the field, but actually it is technically on the field. So Effect Veil's effect goes through, so DD Warrior Lady's ability does not go off. So now that because you have a tributed monster in your hand, I can use Ro to get my DD Warrior Lady as backup for later. Grand Mole can bring my card back to both of my cards back to my hand and pop his card. So now, hopefully, thank God, if he doesn't have a Miracle Fusion, that would ruin my life. But he doesn't have any heroes because I have his hero. So he would have to have a hero monster and that Miracle Fusion to get his play off. So I think by this turn 10, remember when duels had 10 turns? He gets his next DD Warrior Lady out. He goes to attack me. He should have already just put it in defense mode, but I think he knew what was going to happen because I could have just got rid of it with one and Grand Mole would have attacked the game. So, good game, sir. Now we're getting ready to go into our next game. So, I'm going first. I'm still using the same deck. Now, one thing I want to stop right here real quick was one thing that I noticed in the past deck. I was like editing the deck as I was using it, like with cards that I was playing throughout those years. So, and then noticing, okay, 2010 was really, really early Synchro era. So, one thing that I noticed about my Master deck back then, Kisame can tell you, I was a very, very, very heavy on defense player. Like, I was big on Nimble Manga, Obnoxious Celtic Guardian, trap cards. Like, I was very, very big on defense and countering versus just straight up offense, overboarding the field. So, in this one, you get to see where General Werewolf, I know Kisame just did a video about what General Werewolf was in our time. Go check that video out. It's such an important card to our history in the game. But General Werewolf is that guy for us. So trying to be on a more offensive tip in this game. So pulling the rug. Now, most people don't play pulling the rug. I play pulling the rug, and I'm going to show you guys later when we get to the deck list on one of the next duels why I play pulling the rug or why I play certain cards the way that I played them, because this just speaks to the way how I played as a player. So when you do summon, just like that, Stratos, pulling the rug, any monster that does a normal summon that gets its effect off the normal summon, which was a lot of cards back then, you go straight into pulling the rug and knocks it out. Drag Unities, Heroes, a lot of decks do that. So you do the Mystical Space Typhoon. Typically when you do Mystical Space Typhoon back then, you try to go after the second card because the first card is typically the bait card that people set. The second card is the card they really want to do. So you do that, and then I Training with Fires of Doomsday because that was just a card that had most of my tribute monsters. Most of my tribute summon monsters were dark monsters like Caius, Genzo, all of that. So you activate it on your opponent's turn, so that way you don't have to worry about the summon restriction on your turn. You knock that out the way, you summon that, you knock him out, and you just overboard the game, and that would have been a good game. So this game, I went super offensive. I wasn't letting him get his plays off, and you could just strong board him and get him out the way that way. Getting into our last game, because this video, I don't want this video to be too long, but you guys get the idea. So now getting into our last game, I want to pause it right here. This card right here, Vandalion, the Dark Dragon Lord. This was my guy. Like, my boss monster was Light and Darkness Dragon, but Vandalion, Vandalion is my guy, because I played a lot of counter trap cards between Magic Drain, Solemn Strike, Solemn Judgment, Pulling the Rug, Wiretap. Like, I played counter trap cards. So getting Dark Vandalion out, which is like a hand trap in a sense, when you use it in conjunction with a counter trap card, you get the effect of it, and depending on what you negate, you get a different effect. So I set my 3. I had my whole turn set up. I love my hand. Now, another thing was, like I said, as I was adding to the deck, as I was playing. So in this, I think after this, before I got into this game, I went back and I watched that video of the past, present, future battle between me and Kisame, and I was just looking up to see what cards were we using back then. So I was just adding them to the deck, and I'll show you that deck at the end of this. So I was just adding them to the deck, and because the ratios were still there, I just left it over 40. I would have brought it down to 40, try to like shrink it, cut it down, but I love the ratios, and I thought it had enough defense and a lot of offense still, so I just left it as it is and just sought to see how it would do. And then, luckily enough, we will see how it plays out. So once he plays Cup of Ace, I'm thinking, oh, I'm facing a troll player, I'm facing an Exodian player. I was thinking, oh, I can solemn him right now, but I said, no, let me see where he goes, because if anything, whatever card that he goes towards his, whatever card that he's trying to play to get into his engine, that's what I'm going to solemn. So now he does MST. Out of all the cards he could have MST, he goes after Solemn Judgment. Now, in this moment, I could have let it go, but I was really, really eager to get off my Vandalion. So I activated anyway. I want to summon my big-ass boss monster, and I want to get on the field and get the effect of a spell card, where once he's summoned from getting a spell card, look at that usage rate. All my cards' usage rate is so low, because nobody uses the shit I use. You do that, and you knock out the 1500, and I wanted to know, like, okay, once you get that big boss monster on the field, he can't overrun it, so it kind of forces my opponent to get defensive, knowing I had the Mirror Force and Fires of Doomsday face down. Because either way, I would have did Fires of Doomsday and Tribute Summon it. I could have did that, but I was like, no, I want to get my move off. I want to be extra aggressive. So, at this moment, explaining this move, Mirror Force was very, very common back then. So if you had your cards and you thought you could just overboard your opponent, they got 2 or more face downs, it's most likely there's a Dimensional Prison or a Mirror Force. So I said, you know what? Let's play it safe. You go to attack, Morphin Jar number fucking 2. Who plays Morphin Jar number 2? So now at this moment, I'm saying, okay, he's probably an Exodia player, but he's most likely a troll player, and he's trying to make me deck out. So I think at that moment, that's when I went and I started looking. And I said, okay, he has 35, and I have, 41. So I have a 6-card advantage on top of him, and he's pulling cards out of his deck with the Pot of Dualities, with the Gold Sarcophaguses. So I'm thinking, if we go to that route, maybe I can dead him out, but I think I got enough in here where I can just strongboard him. So I'm getting primarily defensive. At this point, I see he has 3 all those face downs. I could have summoned my Jinzo, but I was afraid of, once I saw that, once I saw the Morphing Jars, number 2, I said he probably has Book of Moon. I don't want to run into a Book of Moon and get rid of either one of these guys. I'd much rather get their effects off and make my opponent attack me first, so that way I can either expose what he's getting ready to attack me with to have fodder for Jinzo to jump into it and counter with Jinzo, or he can tap my Nimomanga. I gain my life points back that I lost from Solemn Judgment, and then can get into Jinzo to counter all 3 of these potential trap cards he has face down. So me drawing. So he goes into his play, because I guess he was waiting for an AD changer. He's going into creature swap. So I chain creature swap with Fires of Doomsday, because I was like, okay, if I chain creature swap with Fires of Doomsday, I get my tokens, and then we get to pick. And I can give him a token instead of one of my good guys. But he dark bribes me. I gotta let it, I don't have anything for that. Dark Bribe just automatically gets it off, but it lets you draw a card, so that's the good and the bad. I used to play Dark Bribe. He saw me handing it because like, why are you giving your opponent a card? I would never do something like that. But either way, he gives me his card. I sacrifice it anyway, and I say, you know what, bump it. I'm gonna just go into my Jinzo, and what do you know? It's a Book of Moon. Of course. So now this guy is super trolly, and I gotta figure out a way of how am I, if I can just beat, and then once I saw Morphing guys, where this duel goes, this is why I only did 3 duels, because like, you forget how long games lasted back then. So at this point, he's just recycling Morphing Jar, since he's trying to deck me out, but I had more cards in my deck than him. So let me see. He does Prohibition. He says Effect Bailer. I don't have Effect Bailer in my hand. Effect Bailer is in the deck, but do I get it? No. A second Cup of Ace, he got it off twice. And that's the 3rd one. I'm like, yo, this dude is not getting this off for a 3rd time. Okay, so now I get into my Hydro Geddon, because that's a deck, that's a card that we used to have Nimomanga and Hydro Geddon. So a lot of, like, you watch that old duel. Let me pause it right here. If you watch the old duel, I would have Nimomanga to my defense, and then Kisame would have Hydro Geddon, which honestly, he still stole it from me. I think I used that first, because you could pop a card and summon from the deck again. So you don't really need the Lord of War Dragon, but just swarming the field and getting rid of cards was just a really good mix, especially back then we played cards like Shrink and Book of Moon. So you could move cards into different positions, enemy controller. You switch the positions on the cards to be able to get rid of it, and then you get to swarm the field with another monster that could be tribute fodder for the next turn. Either way, he Swords of Reveal lights me, pops my card face up. He's getting rid of the cards with my own cards. So I say that's no good. I'm gonna I really shouldn't have used that rotor, but either way, I'm sacrificing this. I like Jinzo and Caius, but I'm thinking, okay, so now no track cards. I got the bigger monsters on the field, but no. Book of Eclipse. He's going to keep recycling this move of Morphing Jar. So every turn, it's him using Morphing Jar. Oh, because what was he activated the Shallow Grave, and then I was gonna bring back a card, but then he used DD Crow to get rid of it. So now he's gonna Morphing Jar me to death. And how did he know that that was Mirror Force? Thankfully, he can get rid of Caius, but he can't get rid of Jinzo. That's what I'm afraid of. I don't want to activate Smashing Ground because Smashing Ground is going to get rid of Obnoxious. I want to find a different way to get rid of Obnoxious, but I still want to get rid of Morphing Jar. He will not let me get rid of this Morphing Jar. He is going to continue to either keep flipping it back face down so that way he can get more off of it. He has 8 cards. I have 11. I have 3 cards above him. We're on turn 12 now, but now that I finally got rid of it, but no, he does it again. And then when I get to bring out my card, he Shallow Graves me again. Not Shallow Grave, he DD Crows me again, so he gets to still bring out his card, and then I don't get to bring out anything, which I think is a really creative move. I thought that if both players couldn't get out a card, the card just doesn't activate, but that's actually pretty smart. So now he's going to keep forcing the card to keep going off. Again. And my Marshmallow. He's doing it over and over. And then Morphing Jar number 2. I guess Morphing Jar number 2 was to give him more cards, but you will have to be able to draw until you get the number of cards you had before previously. And he ends up thinning his deck all the way out. So all I had to do was just end my turn. All I had to do was just have a turn. Unless he can deck me out this turn, but he can't because I still have my 5, so I had the necessary cards just enough. So I don't deck out, and he ends up decking himself out. I don't think he was aware of how many cards I had in my deck, but either way, good game, bro. So this is how I had the deck by the last duel, but this is after I watched that video to me, Kisame, where we used our real decks, and I was trying to add a bunch of decks in there, so I could have lowered this down. It's 51 cards. I could bring it down to 40. So I think back then we had this. You could trim out some fat by getting rid of cards like Treeborn Frog, Ex-Airbellum, Grandmo, the Caiuses, Dark Arm Dragon. You can get rid of the one Mystical Space Typhoon, Burden of the Mighty. You can get rid of certain cards that make it a 40 card deck, but this was pretty much the gist of me and Kisame having our Fusion Master deck, where we used the cards that he used, like Mirror Wall, Widespread Ruin, Mirror Force. But we both use Bottomless. There's a lot of cards that we had a lot of overlap with, but we wanted to make sure that the combined versions of our master decks, where we had like the Donzalus, we had Obnoxious Celtic Guardian, my favorite card, then we had his favorite card, Ancient Yugioh. So we had both of our favorite cards back then in our decks, and then we had the cards that made us us. Like, I know he was this big Cyber Dragon guy. We both had Jinwo Werewolf. You saw the video. Treeborn Frog was a Kisame card primarily. Nimble Manga is me. We both played Marshmelon. We both played Night Assailant. I played Dandy. I think we both played DD Warrior Lady, Hydrogeddon, Phantom Sky Blaster, Cyber Dragon, Gores. We both played Gores. Burden of the Mighty is a card that we played, so it just made the game so much funner when we used to just find ways to like have these beat sticks and just fight over each other. But there's some other cards in here that we could have used. Where's that guy? So there's this card that I used to play. It was called, where is it? Ordeal of a Traveler. Let me just add that in there. And I used to play that card with this other card. and this was back when I first met Kisame. I'm going to show you guys. Spring of Rebirth. So, back in the days when Kisame first met me and he got to my master deck, I used to be, like I said, very, very defensive player. You had your Obnoxious Skeleton Guardians, you had your Knight Assailants, Manny the Bug back then. You had your Marshmallows, you had your Nibblemo Mangas. Like, I was very, very defensive. And I remember when Kisame first dueled me for the first time ever. This is back in like 2005, 2006 maybe. Like, yeah, 2006 when me and Kisame had like our first duel. 2005, 2006. And when you would go to attack me, I would activate Ordeal of a Traveler. With Ordeal of a Traveler, when your opponent declares an attack, you have to declare one card in the hand, monster, spell, or trap. Like I said, you would go to attack me, I'd activate Ordeal of a Traveler, and I'd have Spring of Rebirth on the field. So you'd have to guess a card in my hand. I'd always keep one of each or something like that. And if he gets it wrong, the card goes back to the hand, and then I would have Spring of Rebirth, so that way I get 500 life points. So even if you got it wrong, I get 500. And if you get it right, most likely it was Nibblemo Manga that was in face down defense position. So even if you get it right and you get through my card and know what's in my hand now, you attack a Nibblemo Manga, I get 1,000 life points, and then I get 2 more cards out on the field that I contribute the next turn. So I used to use card combinations like that. Like, that was the type of player I would have. And then because I was so defensive, I would have so many cards that you couldn't just run over. And then I had this card called Wave Motion Cannon. I can't believe Wave Motion Cannon is not in this game. Why is Wave Motion Cannon not in this game? For those of you who don't know, Wave Motion Cannon is a continuous spell card where every standby phase you put a counter on it, and for every turn, every count is 1,000 life points. So during your main phase, you can send it to the graveyard, and equal to the number of counters that are on that card. So however many how many of your own standby phases that have passed, you would have that many thousand in there. So just throughout regular battle, that card would still be building in the background, and it would just knock off the rest of the life points. So it was kind of like a very difficult way of how to beat me back then, because it was like, oh, I had this Wave Motion Cannon building, and then you can't beat my monsters while I'm gaining all this extra life points, so you can't knock me out. I'm buying time to get Wave Motion Cannon out to either knock you out with that, or to knock you out with my other card. So guys, that's pretty much the master deck. I had a lot of fun during this. Konami, thank you so much for making this event. I hope we do more like this in the future, because it really brought me back to a time that I had a lot of fun in this game. And I really hope Kisame is playing during this, because it really made me feel young again. I had a lot of fun playing in this era. So I hope we do more like this. But until then, don't forget to like this video, comment down below what you thought of the duels in my deck. What did you play back then, if you played back then? And were you playing this event? Because I had a lot of fun playing it. I really wish we could bring more of this back. It ended yesterday as me uploading it, but it ends today as me filming it, because I wanted to keep playing. But I had a lot of fun. I hope we do more like this. Guys, 2 previous videos. I'll see you on Saturday. Peace.